Let's talk about this latest economic data and why it's important to your pockets. Hello guys, how you doing? This is James here. Thank you very much for tuning in to this video. I'll ask for you to like, share, subscribe, spread the message if this resonates with you. But now let's go ahead and get into this latest economic data, the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, which measures the price changes of goods and services throughout our economy. So I've been able to comb through the latest CPI report, and so I wrote some notes down. So I'm just going to go ahead and touch on some of the latest data. I'm pretty sure some of you guys already know, but I think it deserves, if you haven't, to know what is really going on in our economy. So let's talk about this latest CPI report. So the CPI report is showing that there's a 0.5% increase in consumer prices in January, which may not seem a lot, but if you zoom out, in 2024, the Consumer Price Index rose 3%, which is a little up from the economist's estimate of 2.9%. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the details and see where those prices have been increasing. So our housing costs, shelter expenses rose 0.4% in January and have increased 4.4% in 2024. Energy prices, gasoline price rose 1.8% in January, and the overall energy index increased 1% over the past year. We have food costs, where prices for food at home increased 0.5% in January, and just more noticeably, the price of eggs has increased 15.2% in this month alone. Over the past year, food prices have climbed to 2.5%. And even car insurance, motor vehicle increase costs have surged 11.8% over the past year. And also medical care costs have increased 2.6%. So why is this important? These numbers aren't just coming out of a hole just for the month of January, where you may hear about that in the news about how prices have increased so much this month. But in actuality, prices have been increasing. As we already see in the whole year of 2024, prices have increased in major sectors. When you zoom out even further, you realize that there has been something that hasn't been right with the economy since 2020. Prices have been going up and people have been feeling it. And we've been hearing messages from whether it's the government or the media or the Fed Reserve talking about, hey, they have this stuff under control. About Jerome Powell talking about how this stuff is transitory. But what we have seen now, if we zoom out about 5-6 years later, that things have been getting worse. And I think now is the time that people are really feeling it. They can't just cover up and conceal it anymore. So let's go ahead and zoom out to see a bigger picture from where we were in 2019 to now. So as we said that the CPI, Consumer Price Index, has rose 3% over the past year. The goal was about 2.9%. The Fed Reserve's goal to say that the economy is back to normal is at 2%. So we're still not down. I mean, maybe a little bit lower compared to where we were before, but we're still not where we need to be. And honestly, it doesn't look like we're going to get any better, because with the latest economic data that we just received, that doesn't include any tariffs that are about to go in place soon too as well. So there's other costs that are about to be happening. I think people are already starting to feel it and are starting to be more cautious and aware of how they spend. But let's go ahead and look at where we were since 2019. So as we said, The CPI report for 2024 said that prices have increased 3% over that time. So we use that same data that we just said for 2024. We look at it from 2019 to now, prices have increased about 24. Consumer prices have increased 24%. So that means if you were, let's say, for example, you were buying a pair of Jordans that cost you $100 in 2019, now they're going to cost you about 124, those same ones in 2025. And hey, and that's just one item right there. And layer that with multiple other items that you may be buying, it adds up. And the thing about it is that it would be fine if we had the money to go ahead and compensate for it. But between 2019 and 2025, average hourly earnings have only increased 10.5%, from $27.90 in 2019 to about $30.84 now, which is a 10.5% increase. So if consumer prices have increased 24% since 2019, but our wages have only increased 10.5%, something's not balancing right there. That means our purchasing power has decreased since this time. So no wonder why things seem more expensive. No wonder why people are getting into more debt, because they have to rely now more on credit cards. And what happens when you are relying more on credit cards? Those have one of the highest interest rates that you can go ahead and get. And people get into those debt cycles because they're trying to supplement their income with their credit cards. So over those years, we've seen the average worker's ability to afford goods and services diminish over these years. And the thing about it too, as well, is that while the consumer prices have increased, wages have increased, but not to a level where it meets the consumer prices. But also real assets have increased even more. So the cost to go ahead and buy things that will help you to invest and live for your future is becoming out of reach. Especially if you're someone that did not think about investing around 2019. So let's go over some of the real asset prices that have been going up since 2019. We have in 2019, the S&P delivered a total return of 31.49%. All right, so that means if you put in $100 into the S&P 500 2019, if you left it alone and you let it, the dividends reinvest themselves, you would have approximately about $250 just from leaving it there. The median sales price of a home in the U.S. increased 26.5% between the years 2019 and 2024. Matter of fact, the home prices in Florida up into quarter 3 of 2024 have increased 37% since 2019. So why is that saying like it's gone? Why is it go? Because housing affordability is at an all-time low. Cost of living is outpacing wage growth. Now in this economy, debt is becoming a necessity rather than a choice. And now with prices increasing, businesses are not willing to spend as much. AI is coming. They're looking for ways to cut costs. The traditional job is no longer there anymore. The traditional career path no longer guarantees stability. We have to start realizing that the way we lived, that we grew up in, that our parents raised us to be in, our grandparents maybe succeeded in, had success in, that world, that economy is long gone. And it looks like from these numbers and just things that are going on in the future that it's not coming back. And even though we can go ahead and fight it and try to cling to those days back then where things were a lot cheaper, we have to deal with the fact and figure out what we can do to go ahead and move forward. Because now, this time that we're in, we have to look at life and our goals and our dreams a little bit differently than what we were born and raised to believe what they were really about. We have to move in this workplace a lot differently compared to how our parents and grandparents worked. We're able to go ahead and have a long committed job and be able to rely on a pension. We can't live like that anymore, or we can't believe that if we go ahead and play the path that our parents, family, old friends have lived, that we are going to go ahead and get the same success. And also just new technologies as well is going to make some of those positions even more obsolete. But even though all these things sound doom and gloom, and it can make you feel like the victim of the circumstances, I think, first of all, I think it's to put a silver lining in this dark cloud. I think it's, first of all, good to know that you're not alone feeling this way. Okay, because there's a lot of times, especially with finances, people can internalize that a lot, and people don't like to talk about it. Money is like such a taboo subject, so a lot of people are not comfortable to talk about it with their family or friends and all that, because hey, they may be doing the same way, or we may not want to know that they are doing better, because then we'll internalize that on ourselves. But if we are able to see and identify what is going on in this economy, then we can go ahead and figure out what we need to go ahead and do to move forward. Because even though there's doom and gloom at one end, there always means that there's some type of opportunity for those who seek it on the other. So what can we do to go ahead and fit in this new society, this new world, this new economy? Instead of focusing on this outdated version of success, it's time for us to start focusing on today's economy and what it will look like for us to go ahead and thrive in this new time. Here are 4 ways in what that can look like. The first way is prioritizing financial independence over traditional stability. Many people, when they are looking at investments or just planning for the future, one of the main things is their home. They want to go ahead and buy a home, so that's their big future plan. And I want to be honest with some of you that due to these prices and things not looking like they're going to be well anytime soon, purchasing a home may be out of the cards for some. Even though that's the case, it doesn't mean that you need to lose hope. Instead of aiming for that house and that 30-year mortgage, you can focus more on alternative investments, such as investing in the stock market, real estate investing, starting your own business. This is beneficial because the barrier compared to buying a home is a lot lower, and also probably has a less expenses right there. You can learn a lot and be able to grow that eventually for maybe even more than what a house can actually get you. The second one, and I think this is going to be a big one and probably the most controversial / back and forth between employees and employers, but embracing remote work and location independence. Housing prices continue to increase. Being able to work remotely and not be tied to a certain location can help you to go and move to places that are more affordable. And even though most places have increased since 2019, there are still places that are somewhat affordable compared to most areas, especially here in Florida, right? So you have places in Texas, you have places in Tennessee that are more affordable compared to like your New Yorks, your Californias, and now Florida. One thing that 2020 taught us, a lot of us who were able to go ahead and work from home, is to realize that, hey, you can go ahead and get a lot more done and actually have a better work-life balance. It allows you to be able to cut costs a lot more, cut costs of transportation and living expenses. Number 3, developing multiple streams of income. It's no longer the case that we could rely on just one paycheck to get us by with all of our bills, our savings, and our investing. First of all, some may not make enough to go ahead and do that, be able to go and pay all their bills, save and invest. But then also too, the job may not be as stable. And what happens if one day that you go ahead and get laid off? What will happen now? Are you going to be able to have the income streams to be able to last until maybe you find a new one, or maybe it be the time in which you want to go ahead and go all in on this business idea? And also, I think with another idea from 2020, a lot of people were able to connect more with their passions, or they were able to go ahead and work on or build new crafts and skills. And it's time for us to keep continuing to go ahead and do that. I think it's also just time to go ahead and try to perfect your craft. Like, figure out what things get your creative juices flowing and start working on that. Number 4, and I think this one may be my favorite, is to focus on experiences more than material possessions. Many times, a lot of times, especially now today, and even back before 2019, the way a lot of people measure success was through the material possessions that someone acquired. So it could be by their house, how big their house was, how fancy their car was, or how nice they looked when they dressed, or how expensive their clothes were. And I think for us, in order for us to thrive in today's economy, we have to think less of those things and not really focus. Especially a lot of that stuff comes in with high debts and all. And a lot of that stuff too as well is more of a trap. So it just gets you more stuck into having to work maybe a job in which you don't like to go ahead and continue to pay on those things. I see a lot of people who, especially now, who are buying cars, are having payments in like $6, $7, $8, $1,000. Just to go ahead. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, just to go ahead and look that part. But what if instead of using that money for those monthly car payments, and as we already heard, that car insurance is increasing too as well, and let alone gas as well. With all those, imagine if you didn't have, or maybe were able to cut those prices in half, the freedom that you may be feeling, or like, what can you use that money for? Maybe you can go ahead and use it on experiences. And experiences doesn't mean that you have to go ahead and travel all over the world and things like that. But hey, man, I'm pretty sure there's museums, there's parks, there's different free things or low cost things around your community that you can go ahead and do or experience and all, that would maybe less cost than the material possessions, but also have more of a sentimental value that would last longer than a material possession like a car may have. So those are 4 things. I didn't go far in depth. Maybe I'll do another video just going deeper in that, but you get the point. But here's the reality. We must evolve to fit our current reality in today's economy. We can't think about how things used to be, because those things are gone. And the thing about it is that you're not going to hear it from the news media. You're not going to hear it from your politicians. Or you're not going to hear it from the Fed Reserve. A lot of the times is that they're retroactive. It's like, all right, these prices have been increases, but we find out about this today. But this is going on throughout all 2024, right? It's up to us to be proactive and get on top of it, because if we're waiting for someone to come and save us, then we're just going to get left behind. But I think if we can rethink the way in which how we define success, we can really create a future where financial freedom is attainable and actually live a comfortable, great, thriving, successful life. If you want to hear more about real estate, finance, economy, business, go ahead back to my videos, see it, and I will go ahead and I'll catch you in the next one.